Everyone is waiting with bated breath for a potential strike from Iran. Meanwhile, though, Donald Trump, one of the major party's presidential nominees, was talking for 2 hours on an X Spaces, with billionaire ex-owner Elon Musk last night that really captured the attention of the Beltway. The top line story from all of this in the news media, at least the legacy media, has been, oh my gosh, it was 40 minutes late to start. Just a redo of the DeSantis campaign launch debacle. And, that's so pathetic, blah, blah, blah. Now, do I think it's crazy that they had what Elon Musk claimed was a cyber attack? Then after he claimed it was a cyber attack, sources told The Verge, and I think other news outlets got this as well, that there wasn't actually a DDoS cyber attack. That the rest of Twitter was working fine, the rest of X was working fine. It was just the Spaces crashing because there was interest in it. Yeah, I still think Donald Trump, of all people, who seemed to be very taken with what Elon Musk told him was a record-smashing event. It crashed because they were breaking all of the records and there was so much public attention on it. Listen, there's a tiny fraction of the public that actually is on Twitter, period. Still aren't a lot of average Americans on Twitter, by sort of relative to the standards of how many people exist in the United States. Daily users of Twitter are a pretty small fraction, and that's compared with other social media as well. So I don't think what happened when the stream crashed or when the space crashed is going to move the needle one bit, really, in either direction. I don't think it was great. I think Donald Trump, was just berating the National Association of Black Journalists, people for being late and having poor equipment a couple of weeks ago. So I can't imagine Donald Trump was super happy about that, but maybe Elon Musk mollified him with news about all of the records being smashed. Either way, it was rambling, and it went on for a long time. It started late. There's people on the sort of Elon Trump side, because Elon Musk, who, by the way, is a defense contractor, who has now endorsed Donald Trump and says he's giving money to Donald Trump. There are people on that sort of side of the fence who were saying, yes, it did smash all the records. Everything negative is just media cope. They just hate Trump. They hate Elon Musk. And it was a smashing success. I don't think that's right either. I do, though, want to focus on the bigger picture. Because for all the media chatter and for all of the campaign propaganda, I think something serious happened in the midst of this rambling 2-hour conversation where they ended up talking about Fukushima and Tampon Tim, all kinds of different roads. At one point, Trump said there's a place called Argentina and started talking about Milei. They covered basically everything. But Greg Gutfeld, actually of Fox News, posted what I thought was a very insightful tweet on X. He said the bigger story is that two of the most important people in the world agree, most important world figures, he said, agree on the world. Basically that these two hugely consequential, wealthy, powerful men have come to the same place, have come to a point of consensus, really, on some really critical major issues. And they hashed them out without any campaign aids, giving them folders and documents. They were really just talking, which is very typical of both Donald Trump and Elon Musk, obviously. It's not surprising, but we take for granted, I think, how unusual it is that you have something like this occurring. We're sort of used to Donald Trump, even when he was president of the United States, speaking off the cuff like he was at a press conference for Celebrity Apprentice. But now that you add Elon Musk to the picture, and you saw the common ground that they shared on virtually everything. Elon Musk started the space by saying it's not going to be adversarial. He's like, I'm not going to be George Stephanopoulos. It's not going to be adversarial. It's just going to be a conversation. And they had a space, no pun intended, where they could actually do that. I'm about to take a hard left turn here, but please bear with me because I think that these things are absolutely 100% connected. So there was an excellent piece in City Journal just yesterday where it was written, quote, the main justification for, quote, gender-affirming care for minors in the United States has been that, quote, all major U.S. medical associations support it. Critics of this supposed consensus have argued that it is not grounded in high-quality research or decades of honest and robust deliberation among clinicians with different viewpoints and experiences. Instead, it is the result of a small number of ideologically driven doctor association members and LGBT-focused committees who exploit their colleagues' trusts. Physicians presenting different viewpoints are silenced or kept away from decision-making circles, ensuring the appearance of unanimity. This has been the top line coming from the medical community for the past decade. It has led to likely thousands of horrible cases of gender-confused young people going through what, as Abigail Schreier dubbed, are irreversible procedures, whether they're surgical, whether they're psychological. And as this article pointed out, the US consensus now appears to have its first big fracture. This is just as of this week. In July, the American Society of Plastic Surgeons, a major medical association representing 11,000 members and over 90% of the plastic surgery field in the US and Canada, told me, the author wrote, that, quote, it has not endorsed any organization's practice recommendations for the treatment of adolescents with gender dysphoria. ASPS acknowledged that there is, quote, considerable uncertainty as to the long-term efficacy for the use of chest and genital surgical interventions, and that the existing evidence base is viewed as low quality, low certainty. If you have been paying attention to this issue for years, you have known that this is the case. Honest observers who came to this as full supporters of the LGBT cause have known that that is the case. So what the hell does it have to do with Donald Trump and Elon Musk going on Twitter? Well, as Greg Gutfeld said, something hugely important being lost in this conversation as the media basically ignores the City Journal report on the ASPS and this fracture in what was the consensus as they reported it for a decade, is that you have two important figures that basically agree on the world. Now remember, while we're talking about X, that years ago, Jack Dorsey himself banned misgendering. You couldn't say some of this stuff on X. And again, while there's just a fraction of the American public on this platform, it's where journalists spend their time, it's where political activists spend their time, it is where a lot of the discourse is formed. The narratives are forged on this platform. And for a long time, you couldn't have an honest conversation, a serious conversation about what is now a consensus being fractured by the American Society of Plastic Surgeons, not a group with a political, ideological, partisan agenda in any way whatsoever. Now, we're likely to see more of this, but I think if we put this next article up on the screen, this is leading the front page on Unheard this morning from Thomas Fozzi. Fascinating, he writes, the latest salvo in the ongoing battle between Elon Musk and the EU came courtesy of the X owner. He revealed that in the run-up to the European elections, X was offered, quote, an illegal secret deal. If the platform would agree to secretly censoring online speech, then the European Commission wouldn't fine it for violations of its new online content moderation law, the Digital Services Act. X refused to cooperate, but all other major platforms accepted the deal. This piece is well worth your time, and it is an extremely important landmark, as was that Twitter space that happened in the context as all of this is playing out. Elon Musk's battle with the EU is playing out in the bigger context of this US election and in the bigger context of this worldwide, this global battle to allow speech to be free in the West and on these platforms. Obviously, these platforms operate under very different rules in countries outside the West. But in the West, where we have standards of free speech that we're going to discuss later in this show, sometimes they differ significantly, but they are, we take pride in, relatively free compared to other societies throughout history and in the rest of the world today. This battle is not just about free speech. It's about what the fruit of free speech is, which should be, theoretically, better policies, which should be, theoretically, healthier, happier people because they feel like they are being heard. Elon Musk is one of the very few people disrupting this. Donald Trump is one of the very few people disrupting this. The New York Times did a very splashy profile of Barry Weiss from the Free Press in their pages that the media just obsessed over the last couple of days. Everyone they just wanted to post on X, of course, their favorable opinion of Barry Weiss or their dunk on Barry Weiss, etc. But again, what we're seeing now is institutions either being taken by people that disagree with the elite consensus or institutions springing up by people that disagree with the elite consensus. Elon Musk, Barry Weiss. And there are some disagreements between these people. Donald Trump and Barry Weiss don't agree on a lot, even if Donald Trump and Elon Musk do agree on a lot, although there was some fractures that came up in their conversation, specifically as they started talking about climate change and some other things. But think about that. It's really remarkable. It's really remarkable. Whatever you believe about Donald Trump, whether you vote for Donald Trump or not, whether you own a Tesla or you hate a Tesla or you're one of those owners that slaps a "I hate Elon Musk" sticker on your Tesla, it is remarkable that these two men came together in this space, literally in this space, and had that conversation in the context of what is happening in Europe. Because if you believe that open debate, that broad freedoms protecting speech are important to the West, are important to your country, whether it's the United States or the United Kingdom, if you believe that, I'm not saying you have to vote for Donald Trump. I'm not saying you have to like Elon Musk. I am saying, though, that there is a consensus gelling in the shadow of the elite consensus that has been rock hard for a long time now in places like Davos and NATO and all of that. There's serious challenges to it. And in the UK, it's leading to civil unrest. In the United States, we've seen plenty of civil unrest too, and I pray we don't see more of it. But the good news is that apparently we still have enough freedom to have these conversations, and it would be really refreshing to see somebody other than Elon Musk and somebody other than Donald Trump, somebody other than Barry Weiss, people who have, for years now been in this direction against the sort of elite consensus on clamping down on civil liberties, speech in particular, and new media and all of these platforms. It'd be really refreshing if maybe we saw a little bit of respect from the Kamala Harris and Tim Walz campaign towards free speech. I'm going to talk about that later in the show, but it's just I don't want to take for granted in all of the media chatter about how silly so much of this conversation was. It was. How silly it was that it was late. It was, and whether the propaganda is true or not. Mostly, it's not. I don't want us to lose in all of that how groundbreaking what happened and what is happening. It's not just about that space, but what is happening with Elon Musk as an individual, someone who sort of rides the fence between establishment and anti-establishment, super defense contractor into clean energy, was a big part of that revolution, and is now somewhat heterodox on these culture war issues. There's something happening that I think the powers that be, the gatekeepers, aren't fully aware of, and it's happening right under their noses, and they're not picking up on it. Well, if you enjoyed watching this clip, make sure to subscribe, turn those notifications on YouTube, leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. We're here every week, twice a week, with fresh clips coming out just about every day. We appreciate it so much. Make sure to subscribe.